What's up, guys? How are you? Welcome into the college basketball live stream here on the Betting Pros YouTube channel. I am your host, Matt Perrault. Normally, we're here with Terrell Furman, but we don't have Terrell today. He may jump in at some points in the next couple of moments. So if he jumps in, we will throw him on here and we'll get his picks for tonight. If you guys haven't watched the Daily Juice yet, I'll give you a couple of plays that I put out on the Daily Juice, and then I will give you the plays that I'm adding to the card here for today. This is a pretty nice college basketball card. We've got some big games in the SEC. We got big games in the Big East, couple Big 10 big games, and a couple of Big 12 big games, and that's where we'll start this podcast or this live stream with Arizona at BYU here tonight. Now, BYU is up to a 3-point favorite. I laid 1.5 on this last night. BYU at home has been very good. I've been a little bit on the negative side on Arizona, and I have been burned for it. I've bet against them 2 straight times, and I've lost 2 straight times. The Arizona State game over the weekend, I still think that game should have covered for Arizona State at 6.5-point dogs. They lost the game by 9. It was just one of those games where you're like, man, I had it right there, a couple of possessions, and then Hurley got loose and a headbutt happened. And, well, really, it was just Arizona State unraveling. So 4 consecutive wins for Arizona, and they have covered now going back to the 18th of December. They've won every game but one against Texas Tech on the road, catching 4.5 points, and they lost by 16 points. On the flip side, you've got a BYU team that's playing very well here in the middle to late part of January. They've just lost once to Utah as they were laying 1 point on the road, and they lost to their arch rival by 1. But every other game they have won. So they're 5-1 straight up over their last 6 games. They're also 5-1 straight up ATS as well. They're 8-4 this year, ATS 6-4 in the Big 12. Arizona comes in at 7-4 as well on this. So to me, I got 1.5. It's now 3. Somebody threw this stat at me earlier today. The teams that are at home favored against ranked teams coming into their building, they are 8-0 straight up in 2024, 2025. That would factor into this, where BYU laying 1.5. It's now 3. I wouldn't lay more than 3. Okay. To me, that's the ceiling for this game. I wouldn't go higher than that. It opened at pick. We're now at 3. There's 2.5 left that I see, and that's with Caesars. But if we get, and this game doesn't tip off until 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific time. So if this game goes all the way up to 3, and if this crosses 3, gets to 3.5, I wouldn't play it. But if you're going to play it now, I don't mind playing it now to jump in with that. That's not horrible to jump in with the laying 3, although you may get a push out of it. I laid 1.5. I do think BYU wins the game. I think it's going to be a pretty good basketball game. Baylor and Texas Tech, I spent a lot of time looking at because I really wanted to lay the 7.5 with Texas Tech. They're 8-5 at home this year. ATS, they're 4-1 over the last 5, and Baylor stinks on the road. They're 7-2-1 ATS, but the last game that they had against BYU, they were catching 3.5 on the road. They lost by 4. It was right there. They beat Kansas in a crazy come from behind, being down by 21 points. They rallied, and they won that game. I would lean Texas Tech against Baylor, given how poor they have been against the spread on the road. But they're 4-6 in the Big 12. That's not horrible. And coming off that win over Kansas, you're selling high. Texas Tech beat Houston on the road. Big shocker in the Big 12 as 9.5-point dogs. They won the game outright. TCU at home, they were laying 11.5. They won by 14. They did not cover against Okie State at home. They laid 18. They won by 10. They beat Cincinnati by 10 on the road and beat Arizona by 16 at home. So, 4 of their last 5 wins have been by double digits. They've won 6 games in a row overall, and they've won 8 of 9 straight up. So you have a hot Texas Tech team. So if I was going to bet this, I would lay it, but 7.5 is heavy. It just feels a little bit heavy, in my opinion, on that. Michigan State, UCLA. I was doing a show earlier today with my friend Alan Bell. He likes UCLA here on this, and this game actually does factor into the same trend that I talked about with BYU, where teams at home who are favored against ranked teams coming on the road to their place 8-0, BYU and UCLA. This is a really interesting game just from a runs perspective, because Michigan State has been so darn hot this year, and then they lost their last game to USC. So the UCLA USC trip, do you lose both games? Or do you win one of two? Do you split them? Because you got to go all the way back to the 26th of November to find the other game that Michigan State lost. They've lost 3 games in totality, but only one game in 2025. That was against USC. They were favored by 4. They lost by 6. On the other side, UCLA has won 5 games in a row since being called out after the Rutgers loss and being called soft. They've won by 24, 2, 5, 6, and 26 points against Oregon. I was on UCLA on the road, at home against Oregon, and they killed them. They just blew them out. Same thing's going on here, I think, with UCLA, but the number is dropping. It was 2.5. It was up to 3 at one point. Now it's down to 2. Oh, yeah, we don't see anything below 2. So it's 141 from a total perspective. That's the high. There is a 139 out there. So we got a 2-point discrepancy in the market there between Caesars and let's see, 139 and 141. Superbook in Vegas. So if you're in Vegas, you can arb that and see if it lands 140. You could win both bets coming in on that. So UCLA would be my play if I was going to bet it, but they are 4-7 ATS in the Big Ten. Michigan State is 7-3 ATS in the Big Ten and 6-4 on the road, 8-4 for UCLA at home. I would lean towards taking UCLA here. I would lay the points, lay the 2 with UCLA. I haven't bet it, but if I was going to bet it, that's the game that I would play. Next up is a game that I have bet in a game that will be on my card here. Marquette on the road at St. John's. My goodness, is this a game? 10-1 in the Big East. St. John's up against 9-2 Marquette. Marquette is coming off of a really bad loss at home against Marquette. St. John's can take a commanding lead here in Big East play if they win this game and go up by 2 games here, give Marquette their 3rd loss and go to 10-1. The schedule for St. John's is pretty interesting. This is what they've got left. It is not easy. Marquette tonight, then on the road to UConn, then on the road to Villanova, then they're at home to Creighton, the same team that beat them. St. John's has 1 loss this year. It's by 1 point to the Creighton Blue Jays in Omaha. Lost it 57-56. Revenge time there. DePaul on the road, UConn at home, Butler on the road, Seton Hall at home, and they end the year on the road against Marquette. If Marquette wins this game, well, it's 10-2 St. John's and it's 10-2 Marquette, and we have a race to the Big East title that may be decided on March the 8th when these 2 teams meet in Milwaukee for the Big East crown, potentially number 1 seed in the Big East tournament. For tonight, it's a 140 total, according to KenPom, 72-68. 72-68. If you look at the total of this game, I don't know what to do with the side. I lean towards St. John's, laying 2.5. But St. John's is 8-3 to the under in Big East play this year. Now, they are 7-7 at home, but St. John's is 6-2-1 to the under on the road. So you have a team in St. John's that primarily has played unders. 4 of the last 5 games has been under. 2-2-1 for Marquette over their last 5 games. But 6-2-1 on the road. I'm missing something. I don't understand. This total was 148.5. When it's this 8.5 points, an 8.5 point difference, I just bet it and just say, okay, maybe we got lucky here. First play added here, Marquette. We're going under in St. John's. Under 148.5. It might climb. look around and see what the better number you guys can get. The best number I can see what's coming down now. I got 148.5. It's coming down. Here comes the rush. Oh my, everyone's going down now. 147.5, 148, 147 now. Okay, so here's the run. Leading up the tip-off, everyone's betting the under. I bet 148.5. If you can find a 148, South Point's got 148, DraftKings 147.5, Caesars 147.5. It's like a stock market drop at the moment. If you're going to bet it now. Under 148.5 is my play, what I bet on this game for Marquette and St. John's. Again, I don't understand what was going on. It was getting bet up to get the biggest number and then to have the pros come in and hammer it. It looks like it was a head fake number to me, to be quite honest. That was just a, hey, we're going to drive it up and then we're going to come in and bury it on the under because that number was way too high. So 148.5, St. John's and Marquette for 1.1 units. Official ad onto the Daily Juice card. Okay, continuing. So now we've got, let's see. We have talked about St. John's and Marquette. We talked about BYU and Baylor. Let's talk. Let's go Drake and Murray State in case you guys haven't bet this game yet. Drake and Murray State. This number hasn't moved. It's still 4.5. 7-3 Drake on the road this season, ATS wise. 4-8 Murray State in Missouri Valley Conference play so far. They're 2-6 ATS at home. They haven't covered in their last 3 games. They're 1-4 ATS over the last 5. And this Drake team has 2 losses so far in Missouri Valley Conference play. One of those losses came against Murray State. This is revenge time. I'm super impressed with what Drake has done. They've got numerous players that played Division III basketball last year for Ben McCollum for his school in Missouri. Comes to the Valley and now has a 10-2 record, a 20-2 record straight up this season for the Drake Bulldogs. First loss of the year was Illinois-Chicago, 74-70 on the road. And then they lost to Murray State at home, 66-59. It's revenge time for Drake. Laying 4.5 points. I like Drake to come in here and win this game. The number hadn't moved. Let's see. The number has not moved. It's 4.5 still. I like Drake. Laying 4.5. Road favorites in college basketball haven't been great, but I like Drake here to win this game, to keep their run going here, to get a W. Drake has covered their last 2 games, 7-3 on the road, like I mentioned. They won by 10 on the road just against Southern Illinois. They won against Missouri State on the road, but didn't cover. It was 8.5. They laid 8.5. They won by 7, but against Indiana State, laying 7.5, they won by 18. Against Bradley, they were catching 1.5, and they won by 7. So on the road, they've been good. They're winning. Let's get another win here for Drake on the road against Murray State. Laying 4.5, Drake minus 4.5 for 1.1 units. Okay, let's talk about some of these big games tonight. Kentucky and Ole Miss. This is tough. Like, this is hard. I don't know what to do with this game. A part of me says bet Kentucky. Like, a part of me says this team's going to bounce back because they lost in such embarrassing fashion at home by 10 points to Coach Calipari. Like, the guy that comes back that every fan is cheering against and they want to rip Cal. They're 10-point favorites and they lose the game by 10. So, like, what happens to Mark Pope's team? You figure they go on the road here against Ole Miss and they rally. Ole Miss is a much better road team ATS-wise than a home team ATS-wise. They're 8-2 on the road ATS, but they're 4-7-1 at home. They've lost 4 consecutive games. They have lost straight up 3 of 4. They haven't covered in 4 straight. They've lost 4 or 5. They lost 4 or 5, but they haven't covered in 3 of 4. Mississippi State, they're 5.5 point dogs. They lost by 3. They covered. That was all after the Alabama win on the road. Like, that was the peak for Ole Miss. They beat Bama on the road. They got high on themselves, and ever since then, it's been a disaster. The only win's been against Texas, and they didn't cover. They were 6-point favorites at home against Texas, and they won by 3. On the flip side, Kentucky lost that game. They've lost 3 of 4 games right now, and Kentucky fans are not happy. Like, this team was hot early, and now losses to Bama, Vanderbilt, and last time out, Arkansas at home. They did beat Tennessee, which is somewhat of a stunner. And here is another ranked opponent for Kentucky to go on the road to Oxford, Mississippi, to take on this Ole Miss team. If I was going to bet it, and this number is 4 or 4.5 at the moment, it opened up at 3. I'd take the points. I'd take Kentucky. I would go ahead and take Kentucky. So confirm we're not happy. Yeah, you guys aren't happy. So I'd take Kentucky tonight. If I was going to bet it, I'd take the points. Give me plus 4.5 for Kentucky. It's a 3-point win for Ole Miss, according to KenPom. So you have a 1.5 of value there on KenPom. They think it's an 80-77 win for Ole Miss. I'd take the 4.5 points with Kentucky. I think there's going to be a bounce back spot here. I could see Kentucky win the game outright. So I think that's a real possibility here for Kentucky to win the game outright. Opened up, like I mentioned, at 3. Vanderbilt in Florida. This number is big, okay? It's 13. You may come back, Matt, why are you talking about this game? Because Florida has been killing people. Like, killing people at home. I bet double digits. I bet one time this year I laid double digits. That was Florida at home in their last home game. They were at home against Georgia. They were laying the same number they're laying now. They laid 11.5 against Georgia. They won by 30. Like, the home wins for Florida, 30 against Georgia, 24 against Texas, 30 against Tennessee, 40 against Stetson, 54 against North Florida. Like, I know it's a lot of points, but Vandy's 5-4 ATS on the road this year. They're 13-8 overall, 3-5 in the SEC. That's the only reason why I didn't bet it. Because, I mean, you could really talk me into betting Florida tonight. Florida, the reason why I faded Georgia was because Georgia couldn't score, and I knew they couldn't score. So, like, there's no way Georgia's going to keep up. And they did. Georgia, they win the game, Florida does, by 30. They turn around, they lose to Tennessee by 20 in their last game. But they haven't played since the first. So they've had a couple of days off here to kind of stew on that loss from the weekend and really get annoyed by it. Vanderbilt lost by 30 in their last game to Oklahoma, and they led at the break. Vandy was I was on Oklahoma. Vandy was beating Oklahoma by double digits in that game. And the second half was a complete and utter collapse for Vanderbilt, and Oklahoma couldn't miss in the second half. Oklahoma goes and wins the game by 30. 30. So it's a 16-point loss on the road to Alabama, a 30-point loss to Oklahoma in the last 2 road games. They lost to Missouri by 9 as 5.5-point dogs, and they beat LSU back on the 4th of January, a month ago, laying 2. They won by 8. So they've been playing like crap on the road, and Florida just kills people at home. So, like, I mean, I think you can – I never like advocating laying 11.5 points. You can bet Florida. I think Florida kills Vanderbilt tonight. And I think it would be another one of these double-digit butt kickings that the Gators are going to come up with. Florida's really fun at home. I mean, they may not be the great team on the road, but Todd Golden's team is really, really good at home. So Florida laying 11.5. I don't mind that bet at all to jump in here with that. Let me see. Anything else? I got one more play to give you guys here in just 1 second, but let's do we'll do Auburn, Oklahoma, and then we'll do Purdue and Iowa. Auburn at home against Oklahoma. Again, this Oklahoma team that played really well in the second half, but they didn't play well in the first half. Last time out on the road against A&M, they were catching 8.5 points. They lost by 7. They beat Arkansas straight up as 3.5-point dogs. But they lost to Georgia on the road by 10. They lost to Alabama on the road by 28. And Auburn's at home laying, and then the one, beat Ole Miss laying 5.5, won by 10, laying 12 on the road against LSU, won by 13. Georgia, Tennessee, they only won the games by 2. Missouri, they won by 16. They haven't covered in 3 straight home games. I just have a sneaking suspicion that Auburn might put one on Oklahoma here tonight because they didn't play well in the first half against Vandy. They played incredibly well at home in the second half. To replicate that, I think it's a little bit difficult. So to me, if I'm going to bet it, I'd lay the points, but 17.5 points is 17.5 points. That is just a ton of points. I can't do it. My last play, my 4th play in college basketball here for tonight is Purdue and Iowa. 7.5. Go hunt for it. It's out there in the market. If you want to trail this, go find 7.5. Iowa at home. Look, I know Iowa's not been good this year. They've been a very up and down team. 7.5 at Caesars is still out there. Some are at 7, but 6.5 at South Point. Vegas, you're seeing some money coming in on the dog, and rightfully so, to be quite honest, for Purdue. I like Purdue. I don't love Purdue. They're 17-5 overall. They're 9-2 straight up in the Big Ten. This is a 6-point win, according to KenPom, on the road. So we get 1.5 of value here for Iowa. Hawkeyes, this is a thing I like to do a lot. Home dogs in conference play after they lost a road game in conference play. I bet this a lot here. Killed at Ohio State, 82-65. They're going to come back home the same way they lost to Minnesota and they had to bounce back and they beat Penn State 76-75. I don't think they'll beat Purdue, but Fran McCaffrey's team has got to play better basketball, or Fran McCaffrey might be done in Iowa. Like, things are going really bad, but offensively, Iowa's still very good. They're 28th in efficiency. They're 4th in effective field goal percentage. They're 12th in 3-point shooting, and they're 11th in 2-point shooting in the country. Purdue's defense is not like it's been under Matt Painter. Talking about 258th in 2-point percentage defense, 48th in 3-point percentage defense, which is pretty good, but 145th in effective field goal percentage defense, 30th in efficiency, which is not bad. But for Matt Painter's team, they lost to Ohio State at home. They lost to Auburn, lost to A&M, lost to Penn State, lost to Marquette, 17-5 on the year. But I think Iowa's got enough desperation in them to keep the game close. Purdue is 290th in adjusted tempo. Iowa is 29th. So kind of a contrast in styles. If Purdue can limit Iowa and they make them play up tempo, I'm going to be dead. But sorry. If Iowa can make them play up tempo, I'm probably going to be dead because Purdue most likely will turn the ball over a lot, and then we could have a blowout. But if Purdue is going to slow the game down, 7.5 points is too many points. I think Iowa can shoot well enough in the half court. Home crowd, home dog. It's been hard to go on the road this year. I'll take the 7.5 points. Iowa plus 7.5. Okay. 4 bets for you guys, which I have given you guys so far. BYU minus 1.5. Drake minus 4.5. BYU at home against Arizona. Drake on the road minus 4.5 against Murray State. We have added under 148.5 here for Marquette and St. John's. That game's tipping off here in about an hour. And then we're going in the Big Ten. I'm taking Iowa at plus 7.5 as well for our 4 plays coming up here for today. Let me check the chat and see if you guys have any questions that you guys want me to get to. I got a moment here or two that we can jump in with from questions perspective. William Coleman says Florida's going to kill it, and they're at home. They're really good. Yes, I think you can lay it with Florida if you want. If you want to come in with Florida, you can do that if you would like. St. John's and Marquette's 148 at Hard Rock. That's good. Thank you, William. Appreciate that. In Florida, you guys have got that. Appreciate coming in here on that. So, all right. Those are our 4 plays for us here today in college basketball. Sorry, no Terrell. So I don't know what his plays are. So I appreciate that. No, the Kentucky game was not an official play. I don't have an official play on Kentucky. I don't. If I had to bet it, I would bet Kentucky. I would take the points at plus 4.5. I'm not taking Kentucky officially. No, I'm not taking it officially. No, those 4 plays are, I don't know what to do. Again, Ole Miss, Kentucky losing by 10. It could be cracks in the armor for Mark Pope's team and things go south in a hurry for Kentucky. So I'm concerned about that. That's why it's unofficial. But if I had to take it, I would take Kentucky. I like Florida laying 11.5. You want an extra play. I like the Gators laying 11.5 more. Personally, I think that, even though it's a crazy number, I think that's a better number to fade a bad team on the road against a team at home that kills people. Vandy, I like Vanderbilt at home. I don't like Vanderbilt on the road. Vandy's going to a buzzsaw tonight with Florida. So I think that's the better place to lay it with the Gators, but 11.5 is a lot. That's that's a lot. So William, thank you for watching. We appreciate you watching the Daily Juice podcast. Guys, if you don't know about the Daily Juice podcast, please do me a favor and go and subscribe to the BettingPros YouTube channel, and you guys will be able to get the Daily Juice podcast each and every morning. It's in your inbox, audio or video. Audio is wherever you get your audio podcasts. Videos are right here on the BettingPros YouTube channel. If you like what you're seeing here, I basically do this every day. This is twice as long as I talk normally. Normally it's only 15 minutes, but I give you a podcast, picks, plays. We have the Celtics in the Cavalier game tonight. Cavs laying 1.5 on a trend that I like a lot that I explained. You can go watch the trend. I'll explain it on last night's podcast. But every day, the Daily Juice podcast, every single day, every single morning, go and subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel or wherever you guys get your audio podcasts. So you can fade, follow, or do whatever you want. We had a good month of January. We'll end up about 10 units in the month of January. So coming in here to the month of February. Okay. So once again, the 4 official plays that I have bet here today: BYU minus 1.5, Marquette and St. John's under 148.5, Drake minus 4.5, and Iowa plus 7.5 at home against Purdue. Thank you for being here, guys. Every Tuesday, we're here at 5:30 Eastern, 2:30 Pacific time for a college basketball live chat with me and normally Terrell Furman, but next week we'll get Terrell on here. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday for another college basketball live stream.